My name is Brandon, and I am joined by the Soulless Samurai, and this is Escape the Mind Reviews. Tonight we're going to cover Castle Rock Episode 2, Season 2, New Jerusalem, and I'm excited that you've tuned in. Make sure that you click that like button and you subscribe. How you doing tonight, Soulless?
Doing well, B. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to start the episode and get everything covered, so why don't we jump right in?
Let's do it.
So the episode picks up with Anne at the bottom of the hole that she fell down at the end of the first episode.
Yeah, and there's some interesting things down there.
Some interesting things at the bottom of that hole.
Yes.
We can see pretty clearly that Ace's body appears to have fallen into a grave, and Anne can see the markings for, it looks like the name on the side of the coffin is Damien Aucoin. I might be saying that incorrectly. And it says May 14th, 1619, which is the same year that Castle Rock was founded.
Oh, nice.
And we know that from the previous episode, the scary scarecrow signs that Anne tripped over on her way into town.
Ah, nice catch.
So this is also marked on the side of the grave with those same scarab beetles that we see. We see a large one on the side of the wall, as well as you see a small beetle on each side of the name on the side of the coffin.
Yes, yes, indeed.
So you can see that in the coffin that Ace lands on, that there's a body in there. It doesn't necessarily look more vampire-esque than any other body that you might see, but it looks like it's been in there for a long time, and it's kind of surrounded by a bunch of goo.
Tasty, tasty goo.
So there appears to be about like 6, maybe 7 other caskets that are around Anne that I can see when we were watching it. I'm wondering if this is like a burial ground or a ritual site, or if they were just kind of keeping them there for later. Like what necessarily was going on there?
Yeah.
So Anne tries to climb her way out, and she falls, but she's able to find kind of like this little tunnel that leads its way out of the gravesite. There was a quick nod to the movie It with the little leaf going down the drain to kind of show Anne the way out.
It floats.
I wonder how long it took them to shoot that shot. Like, I would imagine that it probably took them several times of having to sit there and get the leaf in the exact right spot to try to make everything go just the way they needed it to.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing that is a nod to It as well is that you see Anne is wearing a raincoat. And that's one of the things that you'll see in that movie as well.
Oh, true, true. And in the opening credits, there's a shot of the iconic words, "They float, Georgie."
Oh, yeah, there you go. So one of the other things that I thought was interesting is you kind of see like a bunch of rocks that are kind of covering up the manhole, if you will, that she takes off to kind of get to discover the ladder to go through the kind of catacombs area.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed was the way that the rocks were on the entrance. It wasn't to keep the dead in. It was to keep other people out.
Yeah, which that's a little concerning.
Yeah, like it's we need alive people around the dead people to make this go, essentially. So Anne goes through the catacombs. She finds a staircase. When she opens the entrance from the staircase, she ends up getting her way into a large house, which we find out is the Marston house. And as she's on her way out, we see some bums or homeless people that are fornicating, if you will, in the living room, and she kind of busts her way out the front door.
Christmas.
So as she makes her way out the front door, we see that particular house is kind of overlooking the entire construction site. And this is interesting because we mentioned this in the first episode, that house, the Marston house, overlooks Jerusalem's lot, and it's said to have like an evil presence. In the book, the house represents the evil and corruption that's been plaguing the town, and it has a way of like attracting evil people towards the house.
Yes, it sits above the town like a, quote, ruined king, unquote, and that the evil that Hugh B. Marston did in the house left a dry charge behind, which attracted other evils like Kurt Barlow and maybe Ann Wilkes.
Yeah, and Marston was a hitman from Boston who loved torturing small children, and he was responsible for kids disappearing in Salem's Lot, and he took place in satanic rituals, and he killed his wife and himself in 1939, and he also knew the vampire Barlow, according to Stephen King lore.
Ah, yeah, so definitely has a heavy presence in town.
So we pick up with Pop, who's had a flashback of Mogadishu, and we see him getting a chemo treatment in present day. We get a quick flash of Anne getting back to her house, and we can see that she's covered up the hole somehow, and that she had fallen through, and she realizes that she lost her necklace down the hole or somewhere around that whole event of the night before. And Anne is telling Joy that they need to leave town, which definitely upsets Joy, since literally the night before she was just told she could stay.
True. And yeah, we were talking in the first episode about Annie's incredible feats of strength and desperation. How about filling that hole up?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. So it's one of the things that's like, how deep was that hole that they fell down? It was well over at least the whole length of her body, her whole height.
Oh, yeah.
And so she would have needed like a backhoe to fill in that hole. There's no way she was doing it with a shovel.
Right.
Oh, so basically the back and forth between Anne and Joy continues, and Joy ends up locking herself in the bathroom while Anne is having her meltdown about protecting Joy and needing Joy to trust her. So Nadia tells Pop in the next scene about Ace, basically firebombing and Molotov cocktailing the house, and now everyone is looking for Ace.
A mocktail, if you will.
Yeah. And then Pop tells Nadia to tell Abdi not to do anything, but we can very quickly see that Abdi's up to no good.
Yeah, he's got a very disconcerting look, that guy. Doesn't look like he handles things in his way very well.
Isn't he the guy from Captain Phillips?
Is he?
Yeah, the guy that's like, I'm the captain now.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. So we see Chris Merrill checking up on Ace in the next scene, and we see that Ace is missing and his dog has not been getting taken care of, and also that his phone's been left there, even though he is not. And Joy and Anne are having an argument about her hanging out with the other kids at the lodge, and Joy ends up falling and onto a bicycle and recutting open her hand.
Oof, yeah, that was a pretty gruesome fall and sound.
Especially with the dog barking, that's always off-putting, Yeah. So it's tough to, when you're yelling, the dog's upset, and then it's like, yeah, never good outcome when those things happen.
True.
So we get a flashback to 1994 where we see people in a church thanking Pop for bringing the refugees to the area and giving them a place to open their businesses. And it appears, at least to me, that Pop was feeling pretty guilty about something.
Yeah, he was looking very uncomfortable.
So flash forward and back into current time, and we see Pop go to the Mellow Tiger and ask if Ace has been around.
Yes, and the Mellow Tiger is a central location from season 1, and it's from the novel Needful Things.
Awesome. Yeah, I always like those Easter eggs. So Pop is basically there. He's asking if Ace has been around, and there's a city council type meeting going on, and they're kind of arguing about having a parade to celebrate the founders of Castle Rock. They also are pitching kind of a move to tourism through witch tours so they can try to get more money into the town by taking advantage of their dark past.
Right, yeah, and Pop even references the town being founded by witches.
Well, Pop says, he goes, it wasn't witches, it was Satanists. That was the problem. Uh-huh. And he specifically says they made a bad deal with the wrong guy, and they got burned for it. Mm-hmm. They've been making bad deals with the wrong fella for a long, long time, he says.
Is that the Damien we saw on the casket?
Yeah, and of all names, right? Damien?
Yeah.
Always foreshadows great things.
Right.
So Anne takes Joy to Nadia to get stitched up, and Joy, still upset with Anne, asks to be treated without Anne in the room. Nadia mentions that she's 16, so she can do that, and Nadia uses the time to try to get to put together a little bit more of the pieces about Anne and what's really going on there. It appears that she's trying to figure out if Anne hurt Joy or is hurting Joy, like on a more continual basis.
Right, yeah, and Joy tells her at one point that her mom cleans her teeth and that her mom was a dental hygienist. And she asks her too, as she's doing the stitches, so who did these? And she tells her that her mom did them.
Yeah, I remember having one experience in my life when I was younger, and I had put a nail through my foot, and I was like, I think I need to go to the hospital. And my dad was like, no, you're fine. And I was like, no, I think I need to go to the hospital. I ended up being okay. But I can imagine even being a kid, there's times in your life that you infer, like, I think I need more help than what you're capable of in this situation. And they're like, nah, dude, we're good. We got this. And you're like, okay.
Put some glue in it.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Put some Windex on it. So while she's there and she's stitching up her and she finds out that her mom's been doing her dental cleanings and her stitches, Joy also mentions that some of the things that Anne's been telling her that aren't true, like nurses have to move around to keep their licenses. And Nadia mentions pretty quickly that that's not factual.
Yeah.
So during this time, while Joy is getting stitched up, you can see Anne's in the waiting room and she's just barely holding it together. We can see that she feels like everyone in the room is just staring her down, even though they're not actually. And I think this is another step towards showing you that she's not a reliable narrator. Like whatever Anne sees is maybe not actually what's going on at all.
Yeah, very true.
In the next scene, we can see that Abdi is pissed that people are blaming him for killing Ace. Like, man, if I had done this, nobody would even have known he was gone. Like, I would have figured out, I would have hired some Canadians, which I thought was hilarious. They're like the nicest people in the world, eh?
Nobody expects the Canadians.
That's right. I love in South Park when they built the wall. Greatest.
Yeah.
So we get a flashback of Pop when he hears that, basically at the time when he fosters Abdi and Nadia, and we can hear him introducing them to fast food. And then we can see the Merrill boys, and Ace is clearly not happy about the whole thing. He references that Pop kind of gave his milkshake to Abdi. And you just wonder, why didn't Pop just buy more food? Like, did he get home and they're about to eat and he's like, no, screw this. I'm going to give it to the other kids. They deserve it more. Like, I'd be pissed too.
If
Like,
there's any fries left, you can have them.
yeah, buy two more
here's an
Happy
apple
Meals,
pie.
you cheap bastard.
Way to commit, Pop.
Yeah, right. So in the next scene, we see that some of the crew from the construction site has found Anne's necklace, and this makes them believe that the squatters in the abandoned house have been kind of messing around the construction site. So Abdi tasks one of his guys with going up there and evicting them from the house. Doesn't take long when he arrives at the house. We can see that there's the tent from the homeless people are there, but they're nowhere to be found. He even sees like some burning meat in the one little pan there, the hot pot, if you will.
Yeah, it's still sizzling.
And he immediately stumbles upon two burnt bodies, just in the nick of time to get axed in the back of the head.
Yeah, and we never see this mysterious assailant.
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, I would assume it's Ace, but we really don't know. You know, with the house being an evil entity, I wonder if, like, the house has a way to take people out. And the other thing I was wondering, too, I mean, just we're going down the horror train here a little bit.
Choo choo.
Since we couldn't really tell what the discernible meat was that was in the pot, was it those people?
Oh, man, I didn't even think of that.
I mean, charred remains. How would you really know one from the other? And it didn't look like pieces of chicken or anything. It was just kind of like strips of stuff.
Yeah, and they don't seem like the people who'd be buying steak from a grocery store.
All right, so right after the guy gets axed in the back of the head, the next scene we see Pop show up at Ace's, where he finds out that people have been talking that Abdi maybe took out Ace because he was a little pissed off about the Molotov cocktail incident. He goes into Ace's house where the dog bursts through the door and runs over to Anne's house right away, and then the scene cuts out.
Yeah, that dog has an obvious obsession with Anne in that cabin.
That's a pretty loyal, faithful dog, man. After days, he's a single-minded.
Yeah, that's true.
So we flash back and we see Joy at the hospital starting to look around and trying to look up info about nurses in their job. She's going through the cell phone, looking through the onlines.
The interwebs.
So she searches her mom's name, doesn't find anything at all. She searches her own name. She's searching in nursing databases to try to find out about like how long job terms and things like that might be. Kind of putting together the pieces of the story that what her mom told her is maybe not all on the up and up.
Yeah, that levee broke. Yeah, she's had access to the outside world. The lies are all crashing down.
Right after that, we see Anne searching for Joy, and she runs right into Pop, who has shown up at the hospital to confront her about where Ace is located. It looks like Anne's about to spill the beans about what happened, like maybe like, oh man, I'm finally caught. I can't keep this together. The lies aren't even lining up anymore. I got people looking like they're staring at me in the hospital. But she, boom, quick on her feet, comes up with another lie. She tells Pop that Ace threatened her and her daughter, and right when things were about to get bad, Abdi showed up and chased Ace into the woods with a gun.
Yes, and she doesn't even say Abdi, but she hints very strongly at who it is, and Pop kind of figures it out. You definitely get a good idea how talented she is at lying on the spot and weaving these elaborate tales.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because again, another spot where you can see Lizzie Kaplan really lean into the character. Like
Yeah.
you can see her think on her feet, you can see her catch it, but even still having like the dread in her eyes. And as soon as Pop turns to walk away, you can see her take that breath. Like, all right,
Yeah, man.
I'm out of
Crazy
immediate
like a
danger.
fox.
Yeah, she is. She definitely sly for sure. So right after that, we see Abdi, who's clearly become tired of waiting for his friend to come back from evicting the bums from the house. And he thinks his buddy went off to make it with some girl, apparently, and he just decides to leave. And as he's leaving, he gets kidnapped by what appears to be some crew. But as they go to drive off, you can see it says Castle Rock Police on the side of the van.
Yes, and I think Nadia even references at one point that he has some police in his pocket. Dad's part of the police force or the actual police.
So I think then the next scene that comes up after this is interesting for their relationships because it shows a flashback to 2014, and you see Pop and Abdi in their office, and they're both smoking a bone. Abdi is smoking a blunt, Pop smoking a bowl, and they basically go back and forth about kind of the business dealings, and Pop compliments him for being good at what he does, and basically says, hey, when I die, this is going to be yours. And I want you to take care of it. These are your people. You will serve them well, all that kind of stuff. And Pop offers to adopt Abdi and Nadia to kind of make the transition easier for them. But then he goes, it's just for business.
Yeah. And Abdi definitely took that in.
And he even asks him, like, really just for business? And he's like, always.
Yeah.
Not even like well, I just kind of said that sort of deal. Like, I just wanted to know that you actually wanted to do this. Nope, it was always.
Yep, no hesitation.
So as the scene ends, you can see when they pan out, you see a pissed off Ace in the background, and he's basically overheard the entire conversation that Pop and Abdi just had, where he kind of trashed his nephews and then basically said, hey, I'm going to give all my stuff that I've worked hard for to my foster kids. I'm not only going to take your milkshake, now I'm taking your inheritance.
Yeah, it's way more hurtful than just a milkshake.
And I think this kind of sets the scene for the next one that we come across, which is we see Abdi tied up in a chair. And who's there to interrogate him? Not Ace, not Chris, but Pop.
Yes.
And Pop's there giving him the questions about where's Ace. Abdi clearly doesn't think Pop's going to do anything to hurt him. And he even threatens Pop basically, hey, if anything happens to me, I'm going to tell Nadia the truth, and you can't have that.
Yep.
So we get a quick cut of Chris locking up the shop. And as he's going to walk out of the Emporium Galorium, you see the car lights flash on, kind of like Christine. Mm-hmm. And as he goes to walk over towards the car, you hear one of the scarab beetles, and you see kind of a blurred Ace walk past him in the background.
Yeah.
And then right afterwards, you hear like the little car alarm, doop, doop. And then you can kind of tell it seemed like the whole thing was on purpose just to kind of get him out of his way so he could walk away.
Gotcha, yeah.
So we see a flashback next of Abdi being questioned. We're back into where he's tied up to the chair. And Abdi does mention, hey, man, if you're going to torture somebody, torture them. If you're going to kill someone, kill them. I thought you learned that in the army. So something definitely went down. And he, like, while Pop was in Mogadishu, he knows about it.
And Abdi says, quote, you hope I killed him so we'd be even.
Yeah, and he even says, like, even if that happened, we would never still be even, and we're never going to be family. Mm-hmm. So there's clearly something that went down when he was in Mogadishu. I don't know what, but it's just, whatever it was, these guys, there's no turning back between these two.
Yeah, and Abdi's the captain now.
So Pop decides to take matters into his own hands since he sees that Abdi's not taking him seriously. So he goes and gets Ace's dog out of the truck and brings Ace's dog in because he knows that Abdi does not like dogs.
Seems like a stereotype, but okay.
So during further interrogation and kind of flashing the dog in his face and asking him, where's Ace? Where's Ace? You can see that Pop's kind of having an episode and he kind of drops down to the floor. We flash then over to Ace and Joy back at the hospital, and Joy infers that they are running from something, aren't they? They pull up to the cabin and just immediately she's like, I've been putting together the puzzle pieces. I know now we're running from something.
Yeah. Did you do something?
And she immediately rolls into, well, I don't know what you're inferring, which is the same thing that she tried to do with Pop when they were in the hospital, when he tries to say, well, I know Ace was at your house last night. And she's like, well, I don't know what you're inferring. And it's like, that's not even where I was going with that. After that, she says, look, I know that I can't even find your name online. I can't find my name online. We don't even exist. And she's like, you broke the rules. And then Joy just kind of storms off and goes into the house. So right after this, Anne basically is kind of collecting herself, and you start to hear the scarab beetles start to hit up against the window of the car.
Yep, a little buzzing, little thuds.
And you had said you might have known something like a reference point for the beetles.
So yeah, one thing could be the Egyptian symbolism of the way they associated the beetle closely with the sun god and saw the Egyptian scarab as a symbol of renewal and rebirth. But a little deeper dive, there was 2 Gothic horror novels that were published in 1897. One of them was Bram Stoker's Dracula, and is said by King to be his inspiration for Salem's Lot. But both these novels bore an uncanny resemblance to each other, but the second novel, The Beetle, seems more relevant to Castle Rock. It's considerably less well known, but follows the same basic plot points and premise. However, in The Beetle, it isn't a vampire that menaces the character, it's a beetle.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Now, is that an important reference? Are they blending Gothic horror references, just kind of mashing it all together?
Well, you already know they're borrowing from the Stephen King universe. What's borrowing from some more things?
Very true.
So as you see the scarab beetles hitting on the side of the car, she starts to look behind her, and as she turns around, she sees who? Undead Ace just standing there to kind of wrap up the episode. And I love how with young Anne, or Kathy Bates' character, as her eyes are already so huge, and you see them open just a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little, and you're like, I can't believe they got bigger. They got even bigger. But like, I love how you can see that scene play out. Like, it takes that 2 seconds or so for the register in her head. And as it's registering, oh my God, that can't be him, right? And as it hits, like, you just see that dread take over her face. It's awesome. I love the way that the people that they cast, Lizzie Kaplan and the girl that played the younger version that we see in the beginning of the first episode.
Yeah, Ruby Cruz
did an awesome job. And the casting in that is great because, like, just people that can fall into that role of even just staring at them and looking at them, generally, you can tell there's something going on that's just not right.
Yeah, definitely. It sets a mood, too. Yeah, Lizzie Kaplan has been amazing so far.
So that will wrap up episode 2 of Castle Rock for season 2. So what do you think? What's your review out of 10?
Oh, things are starting to ramp up. I'm still going to go with I'll say 7.5.
7.5. I'm still going to stick with 7 on this one. I still enjoyed the episode. I like that we're starting to move into seeing things happen this time. We're starting to get into the meat of things, if you will. So I'm excited to see where it goes for sure. Wasn't bored at any point in time.
No.
So I'm definitely happy about that. I think that. Do you feel like do you feel like so far it's lived up to what you had hoped it to be? You know, we're only 2 episodes in. I know you and I both really enjoyed the first season, other than the last episode. That was really the only episode that we didn't get down with as much. We didn't enjoy the ending as much, which kind of seems to be a J.J. Abrams thing, but we'll get into that later. So what did you think of it? Did you think it compared to the first season within the first 2 episodes with what you expected?
I think I like it more. And again, I think it's because of the familiarity of these characters and stuff, but then there's this whole different story going along with it as well that it's definitely piqued my interest.
I'm really excited to see where this goes, and I really want to see where things continue from here. I'm really hoping they can keep up the momentum and can continue to keep us, happy the whole way through. I feel like the first season did a pretty good job. Like, it didn't really drop off at any real point in time. They had enough stuff that they threw in there along the way. But I think you can tell already that this season's going to be more visceral, where I feel like the first season was more cerebral.
Yeah, I agree.
Still in the 7.5 territory for episode 2. We want to thank everybody for tuning in to Escape the Mind Reviews. Again, my name is Brandon and joined by Solus. And make sure you crush that like button. Make sure you subscribe. If you're listening on SoundCloud, make sure you hit that heart. Make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know what you like, what you enjoyed. Let us know what we could do better. You could always email us at escapethemindproductions@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. For Solus, for B, hope you have a great rest of your night.
Yes, thank you. Good night.